In the bitter winter of 1692, the small Puritan settlement of Salem lived beneath a sky of fear. Snow covered the narrow dirt roads, the church bell echoed through the cold mornings, and whispers of witchcraft moved faster than the wind itself. Every family locked their doors early. Every strange illness, failed harvest, or unexplained death became proof that Satan walked among them. The village was already divided long before the accusations began. Farmers argued over land, church leaders fought for authority, neighbors carried grudges that stretched back years. Yet when several young girls suddenly began screaming, shaking violently, and claiming invisible spirits attacked them, panic spread like wildfire. The girls accused women from every corner of Salem. Some were poor beggars. Others were widows who rarely attended church. A few were simply outspoken women who frightened the rigid Puritan society. Once accused, there was almost no escape. The court accepted dreams, visions, and ghostly sightings as evidence. If someone claimed they saw your spirit harming them in the night, it could be enough to condemn you. By spring, the prison cells were overflowing. Chains rattled through damp stone corridors, while ministers preached that the devil had planted servants among the people. Fear transformed ordinary citizens into informants. Children testified against mothers. Husbands turned against wives to save themselves. Among the imprisoned,
the prison sat on the edge of Salem like a rotting scar upon the frozen earth. Built from dark timber and damp stone, it smelled of mildew, sickness, and fear. Torches flickered weakly against the walls, while icy wind slipped through cracks in the structure. Guards hated night duty there. Many claimed they heard crying long after prisoners had fallen silent. On the evening before the trial, tension filled every corridor. The 9 accused women had spent weeks chained together inside adjoining cells. Despite starvation, sickness, and constant interrogation, witnesses claimed they remained unusually calm. This disturbed the guards more than screaming or begging ever could. One jailer named Thomas Putnam Jr. later testified that Rebecca Nurse prayed softly through the night, while the others listened in silence. Another guard swore Mary Easty asked him a strange question shortly before midnight. "Do you believe innocent souls disappear forever?" she asked. The guard refused to answer. Outside, a violent snowstorm swept across Salem. Church bells rang wildly in the distance as freezing rain battered rooftops. Most villagers stayed awake, praying for protection from evil spirits. The entire colony seemed trapped beneath a blanket of dread. At approximately midnight, witnesses reported strange events throughout the...
It echoed from inside the women's cell block shortly after 1 a.m. Guards rushed forward, expecting violence or suicide. Instead, they found silence. Absolute silence. The prisoners were gone. Their chains still lay attached to the walls. Iron shackles remained locked exactly as before, yet empty. No broken windows existed. No tunnels were discovered beneath the floors. The doors had never been opened. For several minutes, nobody moved. The guards stood frozen in terror. One jailer reportedly fell to his knees and began reciting Bible verses uncontrollably. Another ran into the snow, shouting that witches had turned into smoke and escaped through the walls. The sheriff immediately ordered a search across Salem. Armed men carrying muskets and lanterns combed through forests, barns, frozen rivers, and abandoned houses. They found nothing. Yet strange discoveries deepened the mystery. Near the edge of the woods, searchers uncovered 9 sets of footprints leading into the snow-covered trees. The tracks abruptly stopped in a clearing, as if the women had vanished into thin air. No returning footprints existed. By dawn, hysteria exploded across the colony. Churches filled with terrified females.
The forests surrounding Salem were terrifying, even during daylight. Towering trees blocked the sky, and thick snow muffled every sound beneath the branches. Puritans believed the wilderness belonged to Satan. Native legends, strange disappearances, and wild animal attacks had already filled the woods with fear long before the witch trials began. After the women vanished, the forests became the center of Salem's nightmare. Armed search parties entered the woods daily. Men carried muskets, axes, torches, and Bibles. Ministers traveled with them, praying loudly against evil spirits. Yet every expedition returned more frightened than before. On the second day of the search, a group discovered a torn piece of gray fabric hanging from a dead tree branch. Several guards identified it as part of. A young boy claimed Rebecca Nurse visited him during the night, warning that Salem's leaders had poisoned justice itself. His parents forced him to repeat the story before church officials, who accused the child of consorting with witches. Fear soon became paranoia. Anyone defending the missing women risked suspicion. Families destroyed letters, hidden journals, and personal belongings connected to the accused. Neighbors watched one another constantly. Meanwhile, the authorities faced growing pressure. Governor William Phipps. As hysteria tightened its grip on Salem, the authorities worked desperately to control the narrative. Publicly, ministers preached that supernatural evil had infiltrated the colony. They claimed the vanished women escaped through demonic power and warned citizens to remain loyal to God and the court. Privately, however, fear spread among the judges themselves. The Salem trials were already becoming controversial throughout the Massachusetts colony. Some respected ministers criticized the use of spectral evidence, dreams and visions presented as proof of witchcraft. Wealthy merchants worried the chaos damaged trade and weakened trust in colonial leadership. The disappearance of 9 accused women threatened to destroy the court entirely. If prisoners escaped naturally, it exposed incompetence. If they vanished through foul play, it exposed corruption. And if the public lost faith in the trials, powerful officials could face ruin. Judge Samuel Sewall reportedly demanded a full investigation into the prison guards, but records from that inquiry mysteriously disappeared years later. Another magistrate privately suggested the women had been relocated under secret orders from influential families. Several of the missing women had accused wealthy landowners of using the witch trials to seize property and settle personal grudges. Rebecca Nurse, in particular, came from a respected family that openly criticized the court's methods. Her execution risked dividing Salem further.
One story became especially infamous. A former prison worker claimed he witnessed covered wagons leaving Salem during the stormy night of the disappearances. The wagons allegedly traveled north toward isolated settlements near the frontier. According to his account, armed escorts accompanied them, under orders from high-ranking officials. Yet before he could testify formally, the man died suddenly from what doctors called a fever. Many suspected poisoning. Over time, fear silenced nearly everyone connected to the case. Witnesses changed their stories repeatedly. Documents vanished from archives. Families avoided speaking about the incident entirely. Then came an even stranger revelation. In 1702, years after the trials ended, a minister discovered a hidden journal belonging to one of Salem's former clerks. The journal described unusual financial payments made shortly after the women disappeared. Large sums of money had been transferred between powerful families and several prison officials. The final pages were missing. Before the journal could be fully examined, it vanished as well. By then, the Salem witch trials had already become a source of shame across New England. Public opinion turned sharply against the court. Surviving judges apologized for their actions. Families of the executed demanded justice. But the mystery of the vanished.
More than 3 centuries later, the mystery of the vanished women still haunts the story of Salem. Historians debate what truly happened during those terrifying months of 1692. Yet the legend of the Salem incident continues to survive through folklore, whispered stories, and hidden fragments of colonial history. Officially, many scholars believe the disappearances were exaggerated or distorted over time. Some argue records from multiple cases became confused through generations of retelling. Others suggest frightened villagers transformed ordinary prison transfers or missing documents into supernatural legends. Yet certain details remain difficult to explain. Several surviving testimonies from Salem mention unusual activity on the night before the trial. Search records confirm that armed groups entered the forests for days afterward. Financial records connected to prison staff disappeared under suspicious circumstances. And perhaps most unsettling of all, none of the women were ever conclusively accounted for. In the years following the trials, Salem changed dramatically. Public executions ended. The court dissolved. Many judges openly admitted guilt for condemning innocent people. Survivors described the witch trials as a period when fear destroyed reason itself. Entire families carried shame and trauma for generations. But the legend of the vanished women evolved into something larger than history. To some, the women became symbols of resistance against injustice, innocent victims who escaped a corrupt system determined to destroy them. Others viewed them as ghosts trapped between truth and myth, wandering forever through Salem's forests. Stories continued appearing throughout the 18th and 19th centuries.
Travelers claimed to see lantern lights moving among trees near abandoned colonial roads. Hunters reported hearing women's voices whispering prayers during snowstorms. One local legend warned children never to follow footsteps in fresh winter snow because the Salem Nine still walk at night. By the early 1900s, writers and historians began investigating forgotten archives connected to the incident. Several discovered missing pages in court documents precisely where references to the women should have appeared. Some believed officials deliberately erased evidence to protect influential families from scandal. Modern historians generally agree that political fear, religious extremism, personal revenge, and mass hysteria fueled the Salem witch trials. Whether the 9 women truly vanished mysteriously or became victims of secret actions hidden by authorities may never be fully known. Yet the power of the story remains undeniable. Because the legend speaks to something deeper than ghosts or witchcraft. It reveals what can happen when fear controls society. In Salem, ordinary people became willing to accuse neighbors without proof. Courts abandoned justice for paranoia. Authority figures manipulated panic to gain power. And innocent lives disappeared beneath the weight of terror. That is why the story still matters